Hello, everyone. This is Kevin, and we are just going live for another Sage session. This is number 15. I'm with Jake and Hannah, and the topic, which we'll intro in just a second, is on personal agency. But I see people oops, let me mute myself on the other computer. There, that's YouTube. So I see people that are in there. As soon as you can see and hear us, if you would let us know that we can be seen and heard, then we will start off. Jake and Hannah, say hi so they can hear you, hopefully.
Hello, everyone. Aloha from Hawaii.
Yeah, and for those, oh, there's Judy says hello. So, Judy, if you can see and hear us, we will know we can be seen and heard.
Something changed.
This,
Oh, that. Yeah.
Okay, I see people keep coming on there. All right, we'll just wait for a confirmation from someone, and then we will get rolling. Michelle, we can hear and see you fine. Beautiful. Ralph, Judy, thanks. Okay, Christy. Hey, Christy. Christy, I owe you an update, or you owe me an update. One or the other. We'll do it both. Okay, great. All right, if that's the case, then we will
want me to close that?
we will roll. Okay, here's I'll do an official intro here. So, hey, thanks for joining us. Yeah, Sage session 15. Sage, subjective awareness and genuine expression. If for some reason you happen to see this and are not familiar, you can go to sageprocess.com and download the Sage blueprint. You should do that soon and say that you claimed an original copy before we change it as it evolves as we evolve. Uh, Jake and Hannah, you want to open up the topic for the day?
Yeah, well, this is your fault, this topic.
That's fair enough. All right.
Yeah.
Well, good to see you guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back with you next week.
So this topic came about because Kevin was talking about his history where he felt that he had tremendous agency in his life, the way he ran his life. So we're kind of saying, well, if you had all this agency in terms of making things happen and building a house and building a career and being a professional athlete, then where was agency lacking? And at about the same time, Kevin shared with me something he had written, and I ran it through this new assessment that we have, which we call ALA, and that's for agency language assessment. So person writes something, we can run it through this program, and it will assess your level of agency, the degree to which you represent yourself in writing with whatever level of personal agency you have. So Kevin's written score, and it was on a topic where he was struggling, he was challenging himself. But
Well,
his written score,
I'm good with being candid. I wrote 400 words just to kind of an overview of how I viewed my divorce.
and the score was certainly lower than what Kevin expected or what I expected. And it really pointed out some very interesting inconsistencies, sort of between the way he has lived his life and then the way he was writing about, which also means thinking about his divorce. And so we started to be more discerning, and we talked about the fact that people have behavioral agency, and Kevin's is extremely high. And then we have psychological agency, which is what are we doing internally with our thoughts, the way we create interpretations, the way we describe things, because it's that internal psychological agency that directly influences how we see the world, how we think, how we make sense of everything. So we were really struck by the disparity between the behavioral and the psychological. That's what led to this conversation and me writing the article.
Well, so on that path, as I looked at it, and if you type in personal agency, just type it in a search engine, what you get back is really a depiction of those who feel that they can get up, pull their bootstraps up, and influence their life. Take the bull by the horns and whatever. And it was more of an external focus, which again I thought, well, I it looks like I've been a rock star in that arena. So then we changed it and said, okay, how about psychological? We're really talking about internal. What about psychological agency? And the search engines really spit back the same stuff. And yet, if we go over to what I would say is to me, just a profound extreme of it, Viktor Frankl. Most people are familiar with Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. And here he is in an environment that he can't touch. He has no, quote, agency over his environment. He can't influence it. He has no bootstraps to pull up. And he may be being beaten, he may be being starved. And yet, as we read in Man's Search for Meaning, he, in essence, my paraphrasing, he said, nobody can touch my internal personal agency. I own me, and nobody will touch that. And then in the book, Man's Search for Meaning, he shares his experience of other people to a place where, again, I'm going to use our speed. I'm going to paraphrase and overlap it, where I think he would say, I could see others who did not retain that internal personal agency, and I could predict, in essence, their downfall, which he did, and yet he made it out. So if we go to that personal agency, I would view myself as having the external focused personal agency. I've done that really well, but then what I have experienced then is my internal agency I didn't retain. I gave my agency to circumstances, to achievements, to roles that I fulfilled, specifically my marriage, and I gave those out. And then I had negative consequences as a result of that. So we're looking at this other agency, which in the article that Jake that you wrote, you did. I still don't know a better reference at this point than looking at it as a psychological agency, even though if you type that in, I don't like the results that come back from that, which primarily because I don't think it really exists out there.
Right. And we did a fun thing. I took a few pages from Viktor Frankl's book and I ran that through our assessment. And I did this, by the way, with many, many famous writers, philosophers, psychologists. And Viktor Frankl came out with the highest psychological agency score of anyone. It was a 9.5 on a scale to 10. So just think
Until you put your own writing in, but
I wasn't going to say that, but
I I will. I will.
um, and as I went through and I looked at different psychologists, I think an example would be Sigmund Freud. I believe his score was a 4.5. So just think about this, that the father of psychology did not have a good score when it came to psychological agency. Now, that wasn't his thing. He wasn't really focused on that. He was focused on the subconscious. But as I went through and I ran other psychologists through this, you could see that their linguistic agency was a direct reflection of the way they see the world. So Gabor Mate, for example, who works with people that have gone through a great deal of trauma, and he believes that almost everyone carries a lot of trauma with them. I don't personally agree with that, but he's a very thoughtful, bright guy, and I think his point of view is worth exploring. So his score was pretty low. It was quite low. But you see, it's a reflection of how he sees the world. The way he sees the world is the way he talks about the world. And the way he talks about the world is a reflection of his own internal perspective. So what we're trying to do is help people develop psychological agency expressed through the way you speak and think, which hopefully also translates into behavioral agency and agency in all of your relationships. We're pretty excited about this development where we're able to measure something that previously no one has found a way to measure.
And as soon as we're ready, you'll be aware of it and you can participate as well. I wanted to look at, you said the goal, that Freud's goal was, looking at the subconscious and whatnot. I like discerning, what is our motive? What do we want? What is the end result here? And I look at this, at S.A.G.E. What's the point? I want to connect with me. I want to be secure and at peace with me. That's my goal. That is a goal. With relationships that you just mentioned, I want to connect better with others, have less conflict. So those are our goals. And what we are working on seems to lend itself well to that. I wanted to point out somebody else that you ran some of their information through. William Ury, Bill Ury. He wrote the book. His recent one is called Possible. He got a lot of acclaim because during his presidency, Joe Biden was seen carrying Bill's book Possible onto a helicopter or something like that. But Bill is used, I think, globally for negotiations. His goal is to come to the table with opposing parties. It could be warring countries and try to find a bridge, try to find a connection. So he is about connection. You ran his stuff through the assessment tool, and I think he was like second highest, right under Frankel, wasn't he? Very high.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's one other, but he was extremely high in terms of the score. And it also did a brief assessment of his first book, which I think was Getting to Yes. Is that right?
I think you're right. Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah.
And when he wrote Getting to Yes, and then he went to the new book, Possible, his score increased. So over time, his personal score increased, and the way he wrote the second book increased, but very high level of psychological and linguistic agency.
And I experience him. So I know Bill, and I experience him as a uh, I connect well. Seems to connect well. Again, that's what he's brought in, is to help people connect. And so he seems to embody that much himself, as opposed to, I'm going to go ahead and pick on somebody. And if you don't like that, then you can anger yourself with it. I'm going to pick on Jordan Peterson. I see him as somebody, my depiction is seems very adept at taking people who already believe the way he does and ramping them up even more, strengthening their resolve maybe even more. So he seems really good at doing that. And if that's what his intent is, which I perceive it to be, he's doing exactly what he wants, as opposed to Bill, who's trying to connect with both sides. I don't see Jordan Peterson making an effort to draw people from an opposing side over on his side. If anything, I think he probably uh, polarizes, and they distance further, but that seems to serve his purpose as well. So again, we're down to not a judgment or a right and wrong, just again, what is your goal? And if you want to strengthen one side and let the other be, in opposition, then you may not need Sage. If you want to connect and try to have, as Bill Ury does, a bridge between both sides, and even if they don't agree, that there's still an aspect of connection and harmony, which I've been reading Ram Dass's new book, and he talks about that, about having the looking at the soul behind the issue and try to connect with that soul, even if you don't agree with the issue. That is more in line with our uh, our purposes with Sage.
Yes, and it's oftentimes we talk about our relationship, mine and Hannah's, as being easy, and sometimes people almost don't know what we mean. But I think one of the things Kevin just said is very true, which is we stay connected even when we disagree.
Right.
Yeah.
And that right there changes the nature of our relating. It's not context dependent. It's not, are we in agreement, therefore we're close and connected and getting along? And are we in disagreement, and then there is some kind of distance? It doesn't matter. We're staying connected either way. And this, I think, is only possible for us because of Sage, where we realize the other person is simply expressing his or her interpretation, the way they see the world. And we're curious about that.
And having a respect for that person being a different person. They don't have to see the world the same way.
And at times it just pleasure ourselves with the fact that we
Right.
see things differently.
Exactly.
Kind of intrigued by how, the other
Actually,
person is seeing the world.
find a lot of humor in that too.
Yeah.
Well, so talk on that, because as we look at owning our perspective. So I'm going to own my perspective. Let's if we play with it here, that we are talking about politics. You guys and I, and let's say that we differ with that. I'm going to be okay in uh, Christy. I just saw your message come up. We'll address that, but I'm gonna own my perspective. I'm not gonna say that my perspective is certain, is right, is truth, is fact. I'm gonna own it. It's mine, and you're gonna share yours, and you're gonna own yours. So we should be able to stay connected there. But then, can we stay connected if even if we feel threat? Because I may hear your views and think, man, you're going to go vote that way. And I find that as a threat to my way of life, my beliefs. And so I may stay connected with you, still have, as you said, Hannah, respect for you, but I'm going to vote differently. To me, that's a viable boundary. I hear you. I'm not in line with you. And I may even go so far as to go, you know what? I don't know that I even want to share space and energy with you, but I'm still going to allow you your personal agency. I'm going to retain mine, and we can do that without becoming warring countries, as Bill Urey deals with. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think that if we really respect the other person and their different point of view, we're not as likely to threaten ourselves. And what I would say to you is if you are threatening yourself, at least recognize that you're doing that to yourself. In other words, don't perceive me as the one who is threatening you. You're taking the fact that I'm going to vote for somebody and you don't agree with me and you're upsetting yourself. You're telling a story where you, as you say, you're threatening yourself. Is that the best way to respond? Is there a more constructive way that you could interpret this? And remember that generally, when people threaten themselves, they respond by fighting or fleeing,
Yeah.
neither of which is productive. So if you can recognize that you're threatening yourself and think about, okay, I don't want to fight, I don't want to flee, I don't think either of those will help. I think now you're taking yourself into a more constructive option. Well, what else can I do?
Oh,
Well, have curiosity for one thing. Why does this person believe the way what they do?
okay. Yes. Well, so let's make it let's make it closer to home. It's you guys, and you're having a differing opinion on finances. One wants to spend a whole bunch on a renovation, and the other doesn't, and is really threatened by what that might, the risk that might mean to your finances, because it's not limitless. To where I'm trying to play with somebody who feels like, no, there's a literal, this is going to, this has the possibility of really literally infringing on my well-being or my welfare. Is that fair? Can we take it from that standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, the way that we deal with our differences is we focus on resolution that allows us to be comfortable. So we're going to go through that process with the expectation that at the end we're both comfortable. Whether we spend the money to build or whether we don't spend it, I don't know. And in a way, I think neither of us care. What we care about is that we maintain a respectful connection through the process. We focus on the quality of our connection, not the outcome of whatever it is that we're trying to resolve.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. I'm going to play with that connection. Can we play that connection? I don't know if it's fair to say versus outcome or connection and outcome both. I don't know. Help me with that. Because let me put somebody in a position of, let's say it's the workplace and you're dealing with a boss, a manager, employee, or something like that. Uh, Maybe there's even a better analogy to use, but where you do look and go, gosh, you're weighing that out. Do I want to make, is connection better here, or is the outcome dire enough to me that I may threaten the connection? I don't, play with me on that.
Well, the workplace I always find to be a challenging topic because in the workplace there's a power differential. So you've got a boss and you've got an employee. And if they don't agree, the boss can take an action that has a significant impact on the employee, like terminate them or cut their pay or cut their benefits. So I think although we have used SAGE in the corporate environment and we've done trainings there, generally speaking, SAGE is going to be more effective when there's not a dramatic power differential between two people. And we're coming at it with essentially an equal voice. And that alone is going to help us find a resolution that is likely to work for both of us if our priority is maintaining a healthy connection. And there are some times where I think one person is not going to get what they want and the other will. And when that happens, my suggestion is that you expand your time horizon. In other words, does this matter over the next 5 years? Does this matter 10 years from now? Um, and there are also times when we're dealing with people who are less stable or less mature. And in those situations, we think the person who is more mature may have to take more responsibility for the other individual. They may have to accommodate. But remember that this comes back to it's your choice to be in that relationship.
Right.
And so if being in that relationship with someone who, let's just say, is immature, requires me to tolerate things I don't want to tolerate, that's still on me. I'm still choosing to be here in this relationship, and I want to do that in a sage way. That's my objective.
When you say mature, I found myself also wanting to utilize just secure. Because I find again, my exercise often is okay. How would secure Kevin respond?
Right.
And my continued amazement that it's often different than that gut reaction, which is the point of Sage and being aware, and then having genuine expression based upon how it's secure Kevin respond. And I've found myself in places and I perceive the person that I'm talking with. I, I from what they're how they're saying, how they're expressing themselves, they don't seem very secure. And I comfort myself by realizing I can help secure us both to some degree. Definitely myself, and I find that when I do myself, it increases connection, which seems to make everybody helps them secure themselves.
Right. And you're, from my point of view, you're taking us full circle. You're going back to, you're equating security with maturity, and that when we have inner security, we're going to be more in the sage orientation, which takes us toward the objectives you stated earlier, that you want to have connection with yourself, connection with other people. And that's very consistent with what SAGE is going to promote and make easier. I'm curious, by the way, if people want in the chat box, Kevin talked about essentially his purpose, and I think we share a similar one. But for other people, what's your purpose? What are you looking for? What is it that you're wanting? Because answering that question, we may be able to say, yes, SAGE can really help with that. Or say, not sure how this is going to help you get that. I'm just curious if people want to share.
Well, on that note of those who are with us live, Christy, she says, now she's referring back to the assessment that you mentioned, that you let the cat out of the bag, actually, because we're not ready with it yet, or we're not ready, but we will come forth as soon as we can. She said, is this mechanism for testing writings, people submitted writings, available via ChatGPT, or how does someone have something tested, i.e. perhaps annually someone can see if they're sagely improving? Sure. Well, one thing, if I can, Jake, I would say, Christy, uh, connect with me. You've got my personal info, and we'll get something. We can run something through right away. When Jake did this the other day, he asked me. He said, "Hey man, give me a couple paragraphs. I think is what you said on your sage perspective on your marriage." So I just wrote something out. It ended up. I actually looked at it this morning. It was about 400 words, and I submitted it. And he ran it through this, and instantaneously comes back based on the parameters that Jake put in on Sage, and it came back and it highlighted, oh my gosh, Kevin, here your personal agency is really high in this capacity. It's really, or category, really high here, really high here. Look at these. There's like 4 statements that I made, and in essence, I gave my agency to my former wife. I gave my agency to the past. I gave my agency to, I don't know if it said this, but I'm going to as an example, I gave my agency to a certainty, presenting something as a certainty or a fact or a truth, an objective, I'm sorry, a subjective thing that I gave my agency to. And I just wowed myself because to me that belies my inner belief. No wonder I still feel like I have attachments that I want to that I would say are not helping me. They're not productive. Constructive is the word I was looking for. They're not constructive for me. So I don't know if we want to answer that differently, but Christy, I'd love to do that, and that's what our intent is to have. What do you call it? Just a test run and get 20, 30 people through it before we.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And eventually, Chrissy, people will do this where they may talk about their relationship with their mother and then their brother and then their father and then their husband, and they might see the different degree of agency they have within different relationships. And the system will give a little bit of feedback. How could you say this differently? How could you think about this relationship differently? And then, as you said, you might do it once every few months to see, is your score changing? We're finding it to be a very powerful way to reveal ourselves to ourselves. And the other thing about it is, you can send something to Kevin, he can share it with me. We don't need to read it. We don't even need to see it. We just plug it in and it comes back with an analysis.
Yeah, I thought of that as we do this. That yeah, can we make it anonymous one, or if they wanted to? I mean, I'm just an unlicensed civilian, but you actually are you've got the licensure for therapy, so we can utilize that as well. Um, I do have some folks that put some things in here. Fiona, looks like is her name. Can you talk more about inner security, please? And Judy followed up right with that. She said inner peace and security, calmness with no drama, self freedom. But I appreciate that, Fiona. I mean, that's at the core of what we're talking about here. What the heck is really inner security? Well, I'll let you guys lead off.
Well, a couple thoughts about that, Fiona. One is going back to our mentors, John and Joyce Weir. John talked primarily about locus of control. And it's a term that's used in psychology, but not all that much. And the idea is the locus of control in me, or do I place my locus of control outside of me in other people where they have great influence and power over me because I give it to them? They don't have that unless I give it to them. So the idea with inner security is that I am bringing the locus of control within myself. And I am taking responsibility for how I interpret everything. And I realize there are times where my interpretations don't serve me well. I may have an interpretation where I really discourage and depress myself. Is that constructive? It could be. It could be. But are there other ways that I can interpret what's going on that would help me shift my perspective? I gave you a brief example a few minutes ago when I said you can change the time perspective. So if I think about something that I'm upsetting myself with right now, and I go out and I look back from 5 years in the future, I look back and I say, does this really matter? Will this really matter? And I begin to shift my perspective. Now, this may sound like other forms of psychotherapy where we are reframing things, but that's not what this is. I mean, it is a reframe, but the difference is it's not retrospective. I'm not doing this thinking about something that happened. I'm doing this in real time, moment to moment, every time I speak. And this is why in the article I wrote, I talked about SAGE being both preventative. If I do this, if I speak this way with Hannah, and we stay very present and current, and we're in the SAGE orientation, we eliminate a vast percentage of the issues that would ever have come up. They just don't rise to the surface. They don't exist. We just move through and we clarify things each time we're speaking. In addition to which, this can be generative, which means that as I'm using the language, I'm generating more and more of my own agency. I'm creating more inner security as I have more ownership of myself, my emotions, and my thoughts. So let me know if that's helpful. And Hannah, or Kevin may have things they want to add about inner security.
I was just thinking about the kind of relating to what Kevin was talking about when he's in a situation which could be uh, conflict or avoiding conflict. This space between the stimulus, the person who's saying something, and my response, and that I have control over that space and I can decide how I'm going to respond rather than just react. And it's a consciousness that as we practice SAGE, we become, it becomes more natural for us. Uh,
And you're relating that space between the stimulus and the response to inner security.
that's right. Yeah.
I I thought I did that. If you had asked me this a couple years ago, I thought I did that because I at least just controlled my outer expression, which mainly
Right.
means I just stuffed it. I just endured it. I'm cool, calm, and and collected, seemingly, but I never reconciled it. I just kind of built brick walls with people along the way. Um,
That's what's so exciting about this assessment, because it revealed something to Kevin that Kevin hadn't seen
mhm.
previously, right?
Yeah, I'm one of the co-creators of Sage, and I did not get a 10. Dang it.
Right.
Which goes, Mary. Well, I'll address what you said there. I did want to say, in regards to our topic today on personal agency versus psychological agency, from the kind of the external control and influence of the world as opposed to our internal. That Fiona, if that's your name, that I understand, I really addressed my inner security by trying to control and affect my external world, to be the perfect righteous husband, to be the Superman dad, to be the podcaster and author and former pro athlete, all these things that I woke up every morning and made an effort with my external personal agency to take control of, to try to feel secure until I wore out. Is how I perceive it. I finally wore out. And then the concept here is, now go back to Viktor Frankl. He had this dramatic aspect, amount of personal agency, it seems, and he impacted nothing externally, really. And I thought, that's what I want. I'm worn out over here. I want, if I can have Viktor Frankl, that is regardless of circumstances, beautiful. It doesn't mean that I don't go out and address my circumstances. I mean, I did today. I'm not still laying in bed. I did get up and I chose to do things with my personal agency, but from such a different, a wholly different uh, perspective, a wholly different spirit, a whole different energy. Um,
And Kevin, you're referring to being worn out, and I would just suggest that you're wearing yourself out, right?
yeah, I continually, and I think I still do. I think that's what the assessment showed me. What I got out of that somewhat is there, and I kind of trust. I see this with me. That there's still, I'm still evolving. I'm still growing, and this has been I think my some of my attachments were incredibly strong, and I'm still, I think, still discovering some of them. Obviously, I am. That's what helped. Well, and let me
Before you
respond.
go, while you're
Yeah.
looking that, I just want to point out that little linguistic shift that I'm encouraging. Instead of "I am worn out" as if it's a
Hmm.
fact, to say "I'm wearing myself out." I keep wearing myself out. I just encourage all of you to see if you can feel the difference between "I am worn out" or "this wore me out." Being that way wore me out, and compare that to "I am doing this to myself."
Thank
Then
you.
you have
Go ahead, Jana.
then you have agency. You
Exactly.
can
I have Asian,
choose.
and it's also such a dumb thing for me to say. I think I'm not worn out, but there's an aspect of my own being that I am wearing out. I have been, and I was. It wasn't every area. I'm not sitting here Yeah, I so thanks for pointing out. That's like that thing of going, I am sad. Really, all of you completely, or I am depressed. No, but I have an area that I am wearing myself out. And yeah, exactly, Hannah. What I did, literally, and this is how I feel it for everybody who's listening. This is how I perceive that when I said I am worn out. First off, that wasn't really an honest statement, but I also gave my agency to being to worn out. Like worn out exists out here, and I just put it on. And it's not, but I am wearing myself out in a certain path of my life, a certain uh, aspect of my life. I have been wearing myself out, and I'm working to not. And this assessment just it kind of showcased. Here's a path. You're not wearing yourself out. Here's another one. Rock star. Here's one. You're wearing yourself out in this one. Well, I don't want to do that. And I can start by this is the tool, like Jake just said, this is the preventative and generative opportunity. I can start altering that right now through what I speak if I slow down and be aware and also have Jake and Hannah correct me. But not everybody will get that. But to some degree, that's what we're looking at this tool. I mean, imagine being able to take a proposed communication that you want to share with someone, and whether you're going to speak it or write it, but just run it through this and let it come back and go, Brock, you got a 10 out of 10 personal agency. Go ahead, go forth and prosper. Or there's some places to shore up. um, Mary said, I came to Sage on the hope of better relationship communication with my family. Yet it has changed now. I am now seeking clarity on myself. My personal agency is weak. Fist bump. I
Yep.
love it, Mary.
Yeah,
Love it.
great.
Um,
And
Ralph
there's
said,
no it's Kevin.
I love it. I could say, I love the perspective you shared. And I love the you and me, Mary. How's that? That might take some unpacking. Ralph says, being responsive instead of reactive in situations I challenge myself with. Talking to inner peace. Uh, being responsive instead of reactive in situations I challenge myself with. Steadfast in personal agency. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And as we're talking about this and obviously focusing so specifically, precisely on our wording, I, we're also happy if there's terms that resonate that you resonate with, share them like that. If we, as we're talking about personal agency, and I do hear as people speak back, and I'll hear them just kind of organically use a different term. And sometimes we've had that happen. And go, gosh, I kind of maybe like that better than when we're using, feels more accurate or compelling. Um, and I help myself because if five people all organically use the same term and it's different than the one we're using, uh, feels important.
We're
So
adapting.
Right.
yes, we are adaptive. Um, Mary said also, I'm a bit cautious about, I read, Mary, I read a second ago and appreciate, thank you. She said, I'm a bit cautious about hearing my score because I am eager to improve, yet I am overly self-critical and worry about doing things wrong, even goals I choose for myself. You guys want to address that?
Well, this foundational piece that is seems people really challenge themselves with this. Remember, at the root of SAGE, we're saying there's no praise and no blame. There's really no judgment. Each person is doing him or herself however they are. It makes sense given your background and your life experiences. The question is only, are you doing yourself in a way that you believe is constructive? If not, it's not a matter of feeling bad or being critical. It's a matter of saying, I have a choice. I never saw this before. It's kind of what happened with Kevin when he got his score back. It's like, I, I mean, he even said, I don't understand whatever it was, item number 5. I don't think it's right. And I went and I looked at it because I wasn't sure. And I had to really think about the assessment to understand that it was picking up on something that Kevin wasn't seeing in himself. I don't know. I don't think the details matter. I don't know if you remember that, Kevin.
No, can I speak to it? I
Sure.
it because it comes to, I think it comes to somewhat what we discovered a couple days ago, because initially looked at this. I mean, you guys began this with the Weirs as percept language, perception language, and I initially took that as subjective language, speaking
Right.
subjectively. So to take something and
Right.
say, that storm cloud is scary. Okay, well, that's an objective statement. It's not a fact. That's just my uh so okay, I'm gonna be subjective and kind of I'm gonna be subjective with it and go, okay, I can't say that it's scary, but it sure scares me. Okay, so I was subjective, but what does it lack? Personal agency. Personal agency say, I scare myself with that cloud because there's a bunch of other people over here who are excited. So apparently the cloud doesn't have the power I do. So I scare myself. So that's the next level. And I think to some degree in the assessment where it scored me, I got a lesser score, is I looked back at it and didn't quite understand it because I saw that I was speaking subjectively. I was
Yes.
taking ownership for my perspective, but I wasn't taking personal agency and fully owning it as mine. Does that
That's right.
ring right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And each
Um,
time I see, like taking this uh, assessment, each time I see places where I can improve, I can be proud of myself for wanting to be more conscious about that and changing my behavior or whatever I need to do rather than feel bad about myself.
And if you're
yeah.
feeling bad about yourself, sorry to say this, but you're probably an OS2,
Right,
right? Yeah.
exactly.
Okay. Yeah. I'm trying to think of how to say it well. Taking the assessment and getting a score lesser than what I liked, I still, I guess I validated myself because I'm on the journey. I'm on the path of where I wasn't before. So I'm grateful, and it's an evolution. And is my goal to be and always stay at a 10 out of 10 on the thing? Sure, I want to get better, but I imagine there's will I fully arrive? The point for me is being aware. Is being aware, which actually goes to, so again, Fiona. She said, this is very helpful. Do you have to self censor all the time? I'll let you address self censor. I do want to say something that the first thought I had is I frustrated myself in the past. I did some podcasts with some folks, and I was on my own high horse for a while in regards to what felt like this cultural desire to, can I just be me? It was authenticity. That was it. It was the term of authenticity, and I was struggling with what I felt the cultural perception was. And it was kind of like, can I just be me? Can I just be raw and unfiltered? And can you just, love me anyways? And I thought to my kids, and I thought, well, you're my kid. Yeah, I'm going to love you anyways, but I don't like you at all right now. I don't like your behavior. And it's actually, I'm not cool with it. And I'm going to set a boundary. So am I asking them to self censor all the time? Yeah. It'd be like there's a movie called it was like Uncharted or something like that. It had big actors in it, and they were on this other planet. And on this planet, all the men, their thoughts came out audibly, like out of the cloud, audibly. Well, you can imagine, the what happens when the young kid sees an attractive girl and it just comes out, and he's embarrassed as can be. I thought, uh, that's do any of us want our audible thoughts, our thoughts to come out audibly? We get the chance to modify, to be aware, this is the respond instead of react concept. Self censor. I haven't thought of that term.
Well, the key to me is that it's self. I'm
Yeah.
not being censored. I'm
Yeah.
choosing do I want to alter my word choice? Do I want to alter the tone of my message depending on the person I'm speaking to? And I do. I do make an effort to adjust my presentation based on my audience. Um, so I think that we are self censoring, but it's not based on external determinants. That's what happens in the politically correct world. We are told what words we can use, what words we cannot use. And I believe that that strips away my agency. I know some people will disagree with me, but I want this to be my choice, and I want to take responsibility for my choice. And if I use the wrong words with a person, I'll take responsibility for that as well.
Oh, okay, so I'm thinking of back to where we talked earlier of the goal. Again, what's your intent here? What's your motive? And if it's to get out on the dance floor and just be the authentic you and dance like a wild person, uh, doing your own thing, I guess knock yourself out. But if you desire to dance with someone else in unity with them, you're probably going to end up jacking them in the jaw with your elbow or stomping them on their foot if you're just doing your own thing. Then we're coming into harmony with someone else. Back to connection. Do we desire to connect with someone or not? And uh, well, actually, I don't like my analogy. Maybe forget that because I want to connect with myself too. And even in connecting with myself, I'm self censoring to connect with myself. Because if I just let the non-sage talk go on in my head, I'm starting to see that. I'm starting to experience this sage talking, taking ownership happening in my own head. And I thrill myself with
Yeah.
that. So, uh, thanks for walking with me through a really bad analogy.
Worked for me.
Thanks.
I didn't think it
uh,
was so bad.
okay, well, thanks. I was kind of excited for a moment until it totally disassembled. It, my analogy, disassembled. She says, "Does that take energy that distracts from the connection?" I like that. I'll let you guys jump on that. I like that question.
For me, this isn't about taking energy. This is about the most efficient way to use my energy. So if I'm self censoring as I go through the conversation, for example, I've said something twice and Hannah's not able to hear what I'm saying. I think to myself, maybe I should just listen for a while. Maybe I should make a greater effort to understand her. That's a form of self censoring. I'm deciding to pull back and allow her to have more time to express herself. So, to me, this is an efficient way to use my energy. I'm going to use it one way or the other. I'm either going to end up not spending much time censoring, probably create some drama, and then have to use my energy to repair, or I can use my energy in the first place to be very intentional. The word I would use is intentional and conscious.
Well, let me speak for you guys to pick on me. My experience with you guys, you shared this months ago in my own communication. When am I distracting myself right now by trying to choose words correctly? If that's what you're speaking to, Fiona, eh, I feel like I'm making myself efficient. Uh, you guys shared one time that when I speed up, when I kind of go on autopilot, I start talking. I spend this many words very quickly, and that my propensity was to repeat myself then. I've experienced that in other people now that I've been aware. If I come back and I am aware, conscious, slow down, you could, if you want to call it distracting myself, I guess you could, but I'm going to use less words, more impact, efficient, and not have to repeat myself is what I see. Interestingly, I in auditing just for my own research, Jordan Peterson, I saw him when he receives he does a lot of live Q&As with crowds, and when he receives a question, I saw him a couple of times. He received the question and he just looked down. And there's this long pause, gets his thoughts together, comes up, and very elegant. Uh, I I appreciate him not just diving in, which is what I get. I get that a lot with guests on my show, and I'll pose a question that I think probably warrants some thought, and if they just plow in, it's usually not near. I'm not. I don't get as much out of it, even the energy from it, as the person who goes, "Oh boy, that's a question. Let me think on that." I love the thoughtfulness.
Yeah.
One thing I loved about Obama was that he was consciously thinking through each word as he spoke.
Mm.
And it wasn't rote, it wasn't political sounding. He was really thinking through the point he wanted to make. It was conscious.
Interestingly, I read his book, Dreams of My Father. I think that was the title. And I was just struck. I struck myself by the amount of sage type language he has in the book. It didn't occur to me, but I will do it after our call. I'll take some of that and I'll run it through the assessment. But my guess is he has a pretty high score. And I'm not talking about a political speech, I'm talking where he's writing a very personal expression of his life. And I just remember thinking, where did this guy learn this? I was very impressed.
I would like to see his score. And okay, I got a question for you. Well, so my brother Jared, who's on the other side of the wall from me here, he says I interpret this as we're talking as being impeccable with your word, which is agreement number one out of the four agreements from Don Miguel Ruiz. Uh, Agreement number one, yeah, being impeccable with your word. Those words are the ingredients for your subjective experience.
Right on.
Amen. What's that?
Right on.
You're right on. Yeah. And I was reminded, Jake, who is it that you quoted to me in the past week or so? Uh, it was like those who are more mature or more aware make finer and finer distinctions.
Gregory Bateson, he defines our intelligence as our ability to make finer and finer distinctions. The finer
Yeah.
the distinctions we make, the more intelligent we are.
I
And
like that. Again, what am I trying to communicate? What's my motive behind it? What am I making the effort to communicating, giving gravity to this communication that we're having? Do I want to connect or not? Jared goes on to say, being intentional or impeccable with your word requires tremendous awareness. Try not saying today and see what happens to your awareness. Yeah, I just had a guy on the show. Don't say He's a professor at Yale or something on communication, and those filler words, like, to not do that for most people, you have to slow down. I did. Now I've gotten pretty well versed in those that I can speak fast without saying like, but I have a real time speaking fast and not saying it, giving my agency to it, not describing what is the it I'm talking about. And as Jake, you talk about, it's often the it we use is separating ourselves from whatever the it is. When I have to speak the it's a different experience.
connect,
It is a different, I have a different experience.
yeah, connect with yourself.
Yeah.
I have a challenge for you, Jared. Uh, I'm familiar with that agreement, uh, speaking impeccably. And I want to go back to the example with Kevin saying, I wore myself out.
Hmm.
So somebody could say that and they can think they're speaking impeccably. And what I'd love to have you do while you're visiting with Kevin is to press yourself to use sage language and see what a difference, if any, it makes in how you feel. Uh, because my guess, and we haven't spent time together, but my guess is that you probably are impeccable with your words and that those words are not necessarily aligned with SAGE. That you, I'm making a statement. I have no idea if this is true about you, but you might have said something like Kevin, which is, I wore myself out, or rather, I'm worn out, as opposed to I'm wearing myself out. And I just love to have somebody who has paid so much attention to language step into SAGE and see what you notice. You guys have another week together, right?
More than that, week and a half.
Great.
Yeah, yeah, more than that.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll see if you still love each other at the end.
Well, funny because he just put in the chat here. He says, "In my family, we eliminated the word hate. That single practice expanded into many areas of our life, just cultivating awareness around one word."
Great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's impeccable. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I might say, well, yeah, you get the idea. I just think there is this piece where we go from being impeccable to taking ownership that's hard to convey to someone unless they have the experience, how profound this can be.
He says, "I'm in. Challenge accepted."
Oh, great.
Great.
I, I gosh, again, Fiona, that your questions and I guess your response, Jake, about being efficient, being impeccable with your word, I find myself thinking about just giving gravity to communication. The amount of communication we all do and the words that we speak that I feel like don't resonate often. We're speaking at such a shallow level. And I find myself sometimes struggling to tune into a conversation where somebody is just speaking fast and talking. And I'm just trying to come across kind, I guess, but I'm not. I would rather that they slow down and were impeccable with their words and spoke specifically to what they are and expressed why they're communicating. If we did that, we'd probably all talk a lot less and connect a lot more. Obviously, we've used the word connection. The concept of connecting is a key element of Sage. If your goal or motive is not to connect, I don't know why you would go through the effort. Then just keep sailing as you are. But with connection, I've never experienced any construct that has, well, to marry what you said, that I've helped myself connect with myself. And from that, my ability to then authentically connect with others, I'm living it out. I've shared that on the call with friends, with family, with my kids, with teen kids who most people with teen kids are having kids who can't get a word, don't won't give them a word. Period. There's very little connection, and I'm seeing mine increase. And I'm watching the dynamics, watching the spirit change. Fiona says yes. There's too much idle talking. Yeah, agreed. Well, have we done justice here? Any last questions? Anybody wants to stick in there? Um, but I thank you for the questions. I benefit myself so much by your questions, inquiries, and
Yeah.
just the rawness
Appreciate
of it.
Me too.
Do you want to say anything about the assessment? I mean, again, I'm gonna blame you for letting the cat out of the bag on that. So you got to deal with it. But is this something to where I don't know? We would hope in the next week or two, it's something we can open up and let people submit.
I think we're ready to test drive sort of round one. We're ready to test drive. So if people want to submit something, I will run it through and then send back to you the assessment. I
Do you want
don't
to?
read what you send, but yeah,
Well,
I'll
can
just
they
read.
can they can they ask if so? If you guys, do you want to give them an email address for now? I mean, we can graduate to an anonymous submission where you do it on your own. But for now, if you want to give the email address and you email it there, and I guess you're welcome to say, yeah, you'd rather this you put it in anonymous without us looking, or if you would like it to be seen and participated with at that level, let us know.
Yeah.
Also, it'd be nice to get some feedback once they
Yes.
take the assessment.
Yes, that would be great. In other words, you'll get the assessment back, and we'd love to know, is it helpful? Does it make sense? Do you understand what's being pointed out? That's a great idea because we need to make sure that the way we give feedback or describe your language from an assessment of your agency, it has to make sense to you as the end user. The fact that it makes sense to me isn't necessarily helpful.
Right.
So that'd be great. Yeah. And you can just use Jake Eagle at Gmail. If you send something to me and say, here are 3 paragraphs about a particular issue or a relationship, I'll run it through. If you want feedback, then I will also add whatever comments I may have. And Kevin and Hannah will do the same if they choose to.
Wait, jakeeagle@gmail.com.
Yeah, Jake Eagle at gmail.com.
Okay, I was just going to put that into the chat, but I'm not going to because I don't know how that works with internet spiders and all that kind of junk or whatever. So jakeeagle@gmail.com.
Yeah.
And that's going out just to those of you who are live with us now. So, and do you want to put did you say that a limit on words?
Uh, Probably 500 words would be a max, which is, say 1 to 2 pages. That's
Okay. So maybe 200 to 500 words, somewhere in that vicinity. I mean, 200
yeah,
word, 2 paragraphs is usually a couple hundred words, I think.
yeah, probably 300 to 500 words.
Okay.
Yeah.
Christy Marvel says mahalo and aloha. Okay. Well,
Okay. Thank you all. I
thank you
enjoyed
all.
connecting with
Yep.
you.